His mother lied about his name. She lied about his birthday. She told him both his fathers were dead. They were alive. He grew up believing he was Italian. He was Irish. He had 3 different legal names before he turned 21. And every single detail of his identity was fabricated by the one person who was supposed to protect him. But what if I told you that same man appeared in the very first shot of the greatest film ever made? What if I told you he performed on Broadway alongside Mario Lanza and made training films with Clark Gable? And what if I told you that after all of that, he was digging cesspools for a living before becoming the most famous superhero on American television? Some say fame saved him. Others say it destroyed him. But what if it was something else entirely? His name was George Reeves. He made millions of children believe a man could fly. And on June 16th, 1959, he was found dead from a gunshot wound under circumstances so suspicious that 67 years later, the case has never been solved. The police called it suicide. Almost everyone who knew him called it murder. And the documented evidence was saved. Today, you will see it. These are 10 moments from the life of George Reeves that were documented. Let's begin. Number 1, 3 names, a fake birthday, and 2 fathers she said were dead. January 5th, 1914, Woolstock, Iowa. A boy is born named George Kiefer Brewer, but he will not know that name, or that date, or that town. For decades, his mother, Helen Lesher, had conceived him before marrying Don Brewer. To hide the premarital pregnancy, she lied about his birthday, telling him it was April 5th instead of January 5th. His burial urn adds another layer of confusion, listing January 6th. Even in death, nobody could get his birthday right. Don and Helen separated within months. Helen moved the infant across 4 states before marrying Frank Joseph Besolo, an Italian-American whose family made wine legally for the Catholic Church during Prohibition. In 1927, Besolo formally adopted 13-year-old George. The boy took the name and grew up believing he was Italian. As Reeves later told an interviewer, he thought he was little Georgie Besolo, who talked Italian and Spanish with the other Besolos and ate spaghetti. And then he found out he was Irish, all Irish. But the deceptions ran deeper. When Helen divorced Besolo around 1932, she told George that Frank Besolo had committed suicide. This was a lie. Besolo was alive and would not die until March 4th, 1944. Then, around 1949, a middle-aged man approached George and introduced himself as Don Brewer, his biological father. The man his mother told him was dead. George Reeves had spent his entire life with a fabricated name, a fabricated birthday, a fabricated ethnicity, and fabricated stories about the deaths of 2 father figures who were both still alive. The revelation shattered his relationship with Helen for years. Growing up in Pasadena, California, he channeled all of it into physical and creative pursuits. He enrolled at the Pasadena Community Playhouse in 1935. He was also a skilled amateur boxer, good enough as a heavyweight to compete at the Golden Gloves level. 6'1", 190 pounds, a granite jaw built for the screen. His possessive mother forbade him from competing, terrified he would damage his face. She had already taken his name, his birthday, his father's. Now she took boxing too. Number 2, the first shot of the greatest film ever made. Casting director Max Arnow discovered Reeves at the Pasadena Playhouse and cast him as one of the Tarleton twins in Gone with the Wind, 1939, the most successful motion picture in history. His scene partner was Fred Crane, a non-actor with a real Southern accent who had wandered into an audition while accompanying his cousin. Both men dyed their hair red. Producer David O. Selznick ordered the opening scene reshot 5 times, twice under George Cukor, and 3 more under Victor Fleming, partly because Selznick thought the twins' red dye made them look grotesquely like a pair of Harpo Marx comics. The studio also decided that George Besolo sounded too Italian for a Southern gentleman. So he became George Reeves on screen. That role placed him in the very first shot of the greatest film ever made. And then it did almost nothing for his career. Warner Brothers signed him, but he was cast in minor roles across a string of forgettable pictures. He appeared alongside James Cagney 3 times. He worked with future President Ronald Reagan twice. He never broke through. His real break came in 1943 with So Proudly We Hail, a Paramount war drama starring Claudette Colbert. Director Mark Sandrich believed Reeves had genuine star potential and planned to champion his career. Then, on March 24, 1943, Reeves was drafted into the Army Air Forces. Everything stalled. The Army assigned him to the Special Theatrical Unit, where he performed in Winged Victory on Broadway for 212 performances. His castmates included Red Button's Lee J. Cobb and a young private named Alfred Kokotsa, better known as Mario Lanza. He later transferred to the First Motion Picture Unit at Hal Roach Studios, nicknamed Fort Roach, making training films alongside Clark Gable and William Holden. When Reeves came home in late 1945, his champion Mark Sandrich was dead. Without Sandrich pushing for him, Paramount had no interest. His career cratered. He appeared in Jungle Goddess, a low-budget embarrassment. He played a villain opposite Johnny Weissmuller. He hit absolute bottom with The Adventures of Sir Galahad, a 15-chapter serial so cheap that its Arthurian England sets were recycled Western props. He supplemented his income by digging cesspools. His wife, Eleonora, divorced him in 1950. And Reeves later told his co-star Jack Larson that if Mark Sandrich had lived, he would not be there in that monkey suit. Number 3, The Bottom of the Barrel. June 1951. Film career dead. No prospects. No money. No dignity. George Reeves was offered the role of Superman. The producer's first choice had been Kirk Alyn, who played Superman in the 1940s serials. Allen turned it down. He was already being destroyed by typecasting and knew the role was a trap. Reeves took it because he had nothing left. On the first day of filming, he invited co-star Phyllis Coates into his dressing room, mixed 2 martinis, and raised his glass. His exact words were documented. "Well, Phyllis, welcome to the bottom of the barrel." The production that followed was grueling and cheap. Superman and the Mole Men, the pilot film, was shot in approximately 12 days on a budget under $100,000. The Mole Men's weapon was a modified Electrolux vacuum cleaner with metal braces and a funnel attached. The TV series' first 26 episodes were filmed in just 13 weeks, with 2 episodes shot every 6 to 7 days. Episode budgets ran about $15,000 each. The supporting cast earned $200 per episode and had to threaten to quit before getting a $50 raise. But George Reeves showed up every single day. Number 4, The Wire That Snapped, and the invention that followed. For flying shots, Reeves was suspended on Peter Pan-style wires above the studio floor. During the first season, reportedly while filming the episode Ghost Wolf, a supporting wire snapped. Reeves fell approximately 15 feet to the studio floor. He narrowly avoided a concussion. He flatly refused to use wires again, ever. Special effects supervisor Thal Simonson had to invent an alternative. He built a molded fiberglass flying pan, 35 by 16 inches, that fit under Reeves' costume, and was bolted to a hydraulic system. It moved him against a blue screen projection while he held his arms forward. For takeoffs, Reeves launched himself off an actual swimming pool springboard hidden behind the camera, vaulting over the lens onto padding below. The Superman costume itself was a 2-piece wool knit bodysuit with a sculpted rubber muscle torso underneath, padded shoulders, and a cape. During the black and white seasons, the suit was brown, gray, and white, chosen for proper gray tone reading on film. When color episodes began in 1954, it became the iconic blue, red, and yellow. But Reeves himself only ever saw a few minutes of color test footage. The color episodes were broadcast in black and white until 1965, over 6 seasons and 104 episodes from September 19th, 1952 to April 28th, 1958. Adventures of Superman became a television institution. At his peak, 20,000 children showed up at personal appearances. 91% of American homes with a child under 12 tuned in to watch. He had a personal ritual. At the end of each season, he would remove the S emblem from his costume and mail it to a sick child who had written to him. He quit smoking, so children would never see him with a cigarette. He never brought romantic partners to public events. He appeared as Superman on I Love Lucy in 1957. He directed 3 episodes himself in the final season, hoping to prove he could work behind the camera. He earned approximately $5,000 per week during production, but production lasted only about 8 weeks per year. And he received 0 residuals from the show's endless reruns. The most famous superhero in America was barely middle class. Number 5, 2 Best Picture winners and the role that erased them both. Here is a distinction almost nobody knows. George Reeves appeared in 2 Academy Award Best Picture winners, Gone with the Wind in 1939 and From Here to Eternity in 1953, alongside Burt Lancaster, Montgomery Clift, Frank Sinatra, and Deborah Kerr. Yeah, the famous story claims audiences at a preview screening shouted, "There's Superman," and the studio slashed his scenes. This is largely debunked. Screenwriter Daniel Taraday confirmed that every draft of the screenplay contained exactly the same scenes for Reeves' character, not one scene more nor less. Director Fred Zinnemann said he recalled no significant disruption and confirmed not a single frame was cut. His cast members, including Frank Sinatra and Claude Akins, told biographer Jim Beaver they knew of no reduction. The 2006 film Hollywoodland dramatized the cutting myth, but it is acknowledged as artistic license. The broader typecasting problem, however, was devastatingly real. Reeves told interviewers that the only rub in playing Superman was that he had a tough time finding other roles. Most producers felt he was too closely identified with the character. His friend Bill Walsh at Disney gave him a role in Westward Ho the Wagons in 1956, but Reeves had to wear a thick beard and mustache, essentially a disguise so audiences would not see Superman. It was his final film. He tried creating his own TV series called Port of Entry. He wrote the pilot himself. Nobody would finance it. He explored a singing career, touring with Noel Neal. One venue drew approximately 3 people. Character actor Ben Weldon recalled Reeves saying, "Here I am, wasting my life." Number 6, the older woman who owned him. Toni Mannix was born Camille Bernice Frumes, a former Ziegfeld Follies showgirl. She entered George Reeves' life around 1951, when his career was at its lowest. She was married to Eddie Mannix, the general manager of MGM Studios and one of Hollywood's most feared men. Eddie had started as a bouncer at a New Jersey amusement park with deep organized crime connections. At MGM, he became known as the Fixer and the man who covered up stars' scandals. His first wife, Bernice, died in a suspicious car accident in 1937 after filing for divorce. Mobster Mickey Cohen said Toni was the only person in Hollywood who had any balls. Eddie knew about the affair with Reeves. He approved it. He had his own mistress. The 2 couples would double date. Toni bought George a house at 1579 Benedict Canyon Drive for approximately $12,000. She bought him a Jaguar sports car. She bankrolled his entire lifestyle: clothes, liquor, furniture, vacations, cash. As one source summarized, Toni Mannix owned George Reeves, lock, stock, and barrel. She referred to him as the boy and said he was like a son to Mr. Mannix and me. The affair lasted approximately 7 to 8 years, the entire run of Adventures of Superman. When he died, his will still left his entire $71,000 estate to Toni Mannix. He had never updated it to number 7, the younger woman with the 8-day marriage. In late 1958, Reeves met Leonore Lemon at a New York restaurant and ended things with Toni. Lemon was a Manhattan socialite with a spectacular record of chaos. She held the dubious distinction of being the first woman thrown out of the Stork Club for fist fighting. Her first marriage to Jacob Webb, a great-great-grandson of Cornelius Vanderbilt, lasted 8 days. Zichtag, she was 17 years younger than Toni and by all accounts far wilder. Toni's reaction to being replaced was obsessive and terrifying. She called George's house at all hours, alternately screaming and hanging up, with the sound of a small dog barking in the background. She parked across the street and sat watching for hours. In January 1959, George's beloved one-eyed schnauzer named Sam disappeared from his car. Tony had keys to the car and had been following him everywhere. George sought a restraining order. Lemon moved into the Benedict Canyon house that Tony had purchased. The couple planned to marry on June 18th or 19th, 1959 in Mexico. But the relationship was volatile, full of booze and bickering. 2 bullet holes were later found in the bedroom from a gun discharged during previous arguments. Lemon claimed she was responsible for them. Number 8. The car crash that looked like sabotage. April 8th, 1959, just over 2 months before his death. Reeves lost control of his Jaguar on Benedict Canyon Road, 1 mile from his home. He crashed into rocks. Head injuries requiring 27 stitches, 5 to 7 days hospitalized. Police attributed it to alcohol, but a mechanic who examined the Jaguar reportedly discovered that the brake fluid line had been deliberately severed, not worn, not cracked, severed. This was not the first time something like this had happened in the Mannix orbit. Eddie Mannix's first wife, Bernice, had died in a suspicious car accident in 1937 after filing for divorce. Same pattern. Woman threatens to leave. Car mysteriously fails. Reeves reportedly experienced 3 separate car-related incidents in the months before his death. Near crushes by trucks on the freeway, a speeding car that nearly struck him, and the brake failure. Whether these were coincidence, paranoia, or a pattern of deliberate intimidation remains unknown. In number 9, what happened inside 1579 Benedict Canyon Drive, June 15th, 1959, evening. Reeves and Lemon went out for dinner, where they were overheard arguing. He returned around 11 p.m., had more drinks, and retired upstairs around midnight. He said he wanted to get up early. He was training for an exhibition boxing match with former light heavyweight champion Archie Moore, and had called it the highlight of his life. Shortly after midnight on June 16th, 2 uninvited guests arrived, a neighbor Carol Van Ronkel and William Bliss. They banged on the door until Lemon let them in. Reeves came downstairs in his bathrobe, angry about the noise. An argument with Bliss. Then it subsided. Reeves had a drink and returned upstairs around 1:20 a.m. What happened next is the crux of Hollywood's most enduring mystery. According to LAPD Sergeant V.A. Peterson's report, Leonore Lemon told the group downstairs he is going to shoot himself. They heard a dresser drawer opening upstairs. Lemon said, "He is getting the gun out now, and he is going to shoot himself." Moments later, a single gunshot. Lemon said, "See there, I told you so." William Bliss went upstairs. George Reeves was lying nude on his back across the bed. A .30 caliber German Luger, reportedly registered to Eddie Mannix, lay on the floor between his feet. A single spent shell casing rested under his body. The fatal bullet had entered 1 inch above his right ear, but exited 1 3/4 inches above his left ear and lodged in the ceiling. His blood alcohol was 0.27, nearly 3 times the legal limit. He was on painkillers from the car crash 2 months earlier. Police were not called for approximately 45 minutes. The next day, Lemon called gossip columnist Earl Wilson and denied ever making the predictive statements. Fred Crane, Reeves' lifelong friend from Gone with the Wind, later reported hearsay that William Bliss had told a woman named Millicent Trent that Lemon ran downstairs after the shot, saying, "Tell them I was down here. Tell them I was down here," implying she had been upstairs, not downstairs, when the gun fired. On June 26th, police investigators found 2 additional bullet holes in the bedroom floor, with bullets from the same Luger embedded in the living room ceiling below. All 4 witnesses claimed to have heard only 1 shot. Number 10. The investigation that was never an investigation. The LAPD ruled the death indicated suicide with stunning speed and minimal effort. No crime scene photographs were taken by a crime squad. No fingerprints were dusted for at the scene. No gunshot residue tests were performed on Reeves's hands or anyone else's. The body was washed and embalmed quickly after only a cursory external exam. No full internal autopsy, even when the top of his skull was removed, and nobody checked the head wound for gunpowder traces. the Nick Harris Detective Agency, hired by Reeves's mother Helen Basolo, produced findings that directly challenged the ruling. No powder burns on his face meant the gun was fired from at least 18 inches away. Physically impossible for a self-inflicted gunshot. The shell casing under his body contradicted normal ballistics. Bruises of unknown origin on his forehead and chest, I discovered during a second autopsy ordered by famed attorney Jerry Giesler, suggested a possible struggle. Giesler withdrew from the case after about a month. He reportedly warned Helen that very bad people were involved. He told the press the case had too many phony angles. Helen died in 1964, still convinced her son was murdered. The body was exhumed and cremated in 1961. Whatever physical evidence remained was destroyed. 3 theories persist. The Eddie Mannix theory by Sam. Phyllis Coates received a phone call from Tony at 4:30 in the morning, before news of the death was public. Tony was hyperventilating and said the boy is dead. He has been murdered. In 1999, publicist Edward Lawsey claimed that a dying Alzheimer's afflicted Tony confessed to a Catholic priest that she and Eddie were responsible. She said she was absolutely terrified of going to hell. The Leonore Lemon theory, her bizarre predictive statements, her documented history of violence, her possible presence upstairs, the 45-minute delay, and the fact that she broke the police seal on the property to steal $4,000 in travelers' checks Reeves had purchased for their honeymoon, then fled to New York. Years later, a neighbor reported that during late-night drinking sessions, Lemon confessed to being responsible. She never elaborated. She died December 30th, 1989, age 66. Her body was not found for 5 days. The accident theory. A catastrophically drunk man at .27 BAC, impaired by painkillers, accidentally discharges a weapon. But this does not explain the body position, the casing under the body, the absent fingerprints, or the 45-minute delay. A man who did not know his own name, birthday, or father appeared in the first shot of Gone with the Wind. He performed on Broadway with Mario Lanza. He made training films with Clark Gable. He dug cesspools to survive. He fell 15 feet when a wire snapped and refused to fly on wires again. He appeared in 2 Best Picture winners and was erased by both. He was owned by a woman married to one of Hollywood's most dangerous men. He was engaged to a woman whose first marriage lasted 8 days. Someone severed his brake line 2 months before he died. And on June 16th, 1959, his fiancée predicted his death before the trigger was pulled. George Reeves made millions of children believe a man could fly. The adults in his life never gave him a safe place to land. Jack Larson, who played Jimmy Olsen, said it best decades later. I certainly wish everyone who has got to carry the cape great happiness. I hope they have the success and joy that Noel and I have had, and I wish George had had it, our George. But he died before he ever had a mature fan. Now he has millions. If George Reeves' story moved you, if you remember watching him fly across your television screen on a Saturday morning, I share that memory in the comments. I read every single one. And if stories like this are why you are here, subscribe now, because next week we are covering another Hollywood legend whose real life was more unbelievable than anything they ever put on film. Thanks for watching. I will see you then.